Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. It's a great evening tonight, ain't it? Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Noah. I was born in Community Hospital by the Traffic Circle. I was raised on the east side on Chestnut Avenue, and I became an adult on the north side by Del Amo. I'm 21 years old. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I was born and raised in Long Beach. In my first year of college, I joined the Investing Youth program, as you can see my shirt right here. And we paired with a CSULB professor to create a survey in which we surveyed 757 Long Beach residents. We met up with city council members and the mayor to try and communicate what we had found through our survey, which was 80% of the residents believe that youth empowerment should be prioritized. 78% said that mental health should be prioritized. Parks and after-school programs also had 78%. And libraries were at 69. And lastly, only 18% actually believed that police and staff should be prioritized. At the time, and continuously, police have almost half of the budget at around 40%. Not all of the city council members or the mayor were receptive, and we received pushback when we tried to give them the information. But in the end, we were actually able to have the first Children and Youth Fund created, which was used to create the Youth Strategic Plan Team, also known as YSP, as well as having the survey be received as official city data that can be used by officials to create future, what was it? Not legislation, but ordinances, sorry about that. And I have worked with other young men and masculine-centered folk through the Sons of Brothers camp. One of the main focuses of the camp was healing young folks by creating community together. And in doing so, it allowed me to see how similar the different cities were. I met with so many amazing young leaders who were doing work in their individual cities, and we all seemed to be kind of having the same road. The Maasai tribes have a greeting which asks, "How are the children?" It's asked because the children's well-being reflects on the community's well-being. Youth experience the lack of resources for themselves and for their family members. This may or may not include foster youth who don't always have stable housing. In 2020, Long Beach calculated that 2,034 folks were experiencing houselessness. And of those 2,034, 814 of them were young people. Young people experience issues all across the board, all while trying to go to school and trying to grow up. Huey P. Newton, he's the co-founder of the Black Panthers, said, "The revolution has always been in the hands of the young. The young inherit the revolution." The young people will be the ones who lead us in the future. They're the ones who understand what is needed because they know what they're missing in order to reach their potential. Including a youth perspective in policy development and program implementation is critical because they will be the ones following in the footsteps of those who are currently in power. And they're the ones who will change our community. As young folks, we need the guidance and wisdom of our elders and those before us, as well as them needing the wisdom that we provide as young folks. A community needs to have unity, and that means folks of all ages, genders, races, and abilities, and other identities. During the process of developing the Youth Strategic Plan, I have worked with folks from different districts, and they all have wonderful ideas for community improvement. The adults helped with the process by showing and explaining how to work through the different barriers that came with doing the work this way. The possibility is that the youth will have a place at the table to be able to use their voice for youth now and future generations. We talked about youth programs, paid internships for youth, funding for mental and emotional support, as well as more medical access for young folks who want to take autonomy over their own medical decisions. Investing in youth art and creativity, and etc. So many more ideas. Wouldn't it be beautiful for all young people to be housed and have the support they need so that they can focus on enjoying life and focusing on their futures instead of having to worry about their survival? Wouldn't it be amazing to see our young ones grow up to be strong, healthy, and motivated members of the community? For young folks to feel and be accepted for who they are regardless of race, gender, sexuality, ability, etc. The goal for the data was that it could be used as proof for what the community was asking for. The data can be used for future local ordinances or the adult allies like Eric, Joy, Kelly, Dr. Tiffany. They'll continue working with young leaders to continue fighting for youth investment and involvement. Thank you. I'm going to pass it to the moderator now, Eli Romero.
Thank you so much, Noah. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us on this warm October afternoon. My name is Eli Romero. Over the last 7 months, I've had the opportunity to work with a team of youth residents and youth development experts in an effort to gain a deeper understanding of the needs of young Long Beach residents and the supports they need to succeed on all aspects of their lives. In partnership with local policy experts, including Dr. Alex Norman, a retired UCLA researcher and civil rights advocate, a team of 15 Long Beach youth ambassadors were trained on data collection and data analysis. I had the opportunity to work with this team as we held 5 community forums before COVID-19, and amid the pandemic, we held a series of interviews with youth-serving stakeholders, virtual focus groups, and conversations with youth. 3 My Brother's Keeper virtual town halls, including today's panel, which focus on the intersectionality of COVID-19 and our nation's racial justice reckoning. And we successfully released a community survey. Through these efforts, we engaged over 1,000 residents. In the data, we observed many themes which, of course, informed the following goals that were developed by our youth ambassador colleagues. The first goal being centered around a youth development framework, which is youth and young adults have access to a robust, sustainable, and coordinated response system within the city of Long Beach. Second goal is mental health and wellness. Youth and young adults have access to mental health and wellness services, followed by planning for the future. Youth and young adults have access to career pathways that ensure economic stability and mobility. Community care, which we'll later define. Youth and young adults have access to inclusive spaces that foster a caring environment in which to grow and develop. Followed by transportation, youth have access to safe, affordable, and accessible transportation options. Housing, which is youth have access to safe, affordable, and accessible housing options. This plan was developed in the midst of COVID-19 and social uprising. Youth have repeatedly shared how these 2 social situations have impacted their ability to make confident decisions about their future well-being, and how also it has affected their overall mental health, ability to engage in physical and social activities, and inform their perception of law enforcement. Youth have also refined public safety as community care, which is with a 2-part approach. Community care focuses on increasing opportunities for social connectedness and also improved community police relationships. Also occurring on an almost parallel track with the city's racial conciliation framework, the racial reconciliation framework process incorporated several tenets of the youth strategic plan themes, and recently council approved the allocation of funding to launch, this is very exciting news, the Office of Youth Development. The Office of Youth Development will be responsible for the implementation of the plan through coordinated city efforts and public-private partnerships. The development of this office is currently in progress. And to our panel, as we begin to unfold the development of this office and the implementation of the city's youth strategic plan, we invite you as department leaders and educational leaders as well to explore how we could work across city departments, the school district as well, as we continuously engage service providers and youth to successfully implement this plan. The questions we will ask today are starting point to begin dialoguing on how to work across institutions with the community on youth development efforts in the city of Long Beach. Now I'm going to turn it over to the panel for introductions. Please share your name, organization, role, and of course your preferred pronouns. We'll start off with Joy.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. My name is Joy Warren, and I'm a recreation superintendent with the City of Long Beach Parks, Recreation, and Marine Department. I have the privilege of working with a wonderful dynamic team to bring a number of youth programs for the city through the Parks and Rec Department, and I'm happy to be here. My pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Good afternoon, and thank you again, Eli, for forming this group, and thank you to the panel for participating in this today. My name is Byron Blair. I'm a lieutenant with Long Beach Police Department. I've been with the police department for about 24 years and currently assigned to the Office of Constitutional Policing. And my pronouns are him,
He, his.
Him, he, and
His.
his. Thank you.
I'm assuming that, but
Yeah.
yes.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. I'm Kelly Caulippi. I'm the Director of the Health and Human Services Department for the City of Long Beach. This is the landing space of the new Youth Development Office, so I'm very excited that we have this opportunity. And we've really had the privilege of being able to work with our youth ambassadors in the creation of this plan and of this work, and I'm looking forward to talking more about it today and for the launch moving forward. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Good afternoon. I'm Tiffany Brown. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the Deputy Superintendent, Long Beach Unified School District. Very honored to be here with this panel and talking about a topic of huge importance and efforts that are near and dear to me and the work that we do in the school district. Thanks to Noah for doing the hard work and starting us off today. So just want to put that out there.
Buenas tardes, my name is Eric Sarato, and I'm the Assistant Director of Pacific Gateway Workforce Innovation Network, which is the regional workforce board and part of the city's economic development department. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and get started. Just as reference, we have the goals behind you. Feel free to look behind you every once in a while. We also have it in front of you. But we're going to start off with a two-part question. The first goal in this plan is to establish a coordinated response system for youth development in the city. This includes establishing an Office of Youth Development. How would you work with the Office of Youth Development to implement the goals in this plan? The plan is going to be implemented amid and beyond COVID-19. What would it take for all of us to successfully collaborate? Let's start off with Kelly.
Do you want me to answer both?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon. So first of all, the Office of Youth Development will be in the Health Department. So in terms of working with the office, I'll be very closely contacted as well as the team. I see in such a way that we've been so closely tied with our youth ambassadors through this work, and I look forward to working more closely with them as this rolls out, as well as many youth in the city to really be able to support moving toward to all of our different goals around planning for our future and mental health supports and substance use supports and so many things that we want to be working on together. Our health department right now actually has homeless services as part of its mission, and we've been working really hard trying to identify how we can better provide housing supports to our youth. So there's just so many different spaces that it fits, and I'm looking forward to those opportunities. I think in terms of the COVID-19, it has certainly thrown us all for a loop, really. So when you think about what it's done for our city, as well as for our youth, I know it's been highly impactful. And we want to make sure that as we are planning and working through all that we want to do for this Youth Development Office, is that we are understanding what those impacts are, and that we are not sort of assuming that they had no impact, but that we actually work from that space, and how are we best working to support and to engage with our youth through all mechanisms of being able to connect, as well as to understand the impacts on just wellness and ensuring that everybody is well as we move forward. Thanks.
Lieutenant Byron, yes, this presents a very unique opportunity for the police department to become engaged in youth development activities. How do you see yourself working with the Office of Youth Development?
It does provide some outstanding opportunities, and I think that 2020 has been different for all of us, especially as we talk about our youth. I think one of the things that in working with Kelly's office in 2020 on a variety of different initiatives, I found that it's a great opportunity for us to kind of educate our city partners in what the police department does, what we've done historically, what we would like to do in light of COVID-19 for 2020, and some of the things that's worked well for us over time. One of the things that we recognize is that we're in a different space and in different energy, so I think there's a great opportunity for us to have a very good conversation in 2020 to be able to talk about different things with our youth, where they are today and where they would like to be, and us as a police department being part of that process. And I think that it's important that we're also a resource for our city partners and for the youth, and for them to understand what we can do and what we can be for our community. Some of the things that we talked about as far as COVID-19 and the police department's role and what we could do is having a sustained commitment in working with our youth. And I'll get into a little bit of my personal history a little bit later. am extremely committed to our youth and have been for many, many years, as well as our command staff in our police department. I think that we have to recognize what the impact of time and sharing a moment in time with our youth is and what that does for them, not only in the current climate, but for their future as well. And then also having a succession plan at all levels of our department, from our officer level to our sergeant level, all the way up to the chief of police. And that's something that we firmly believe in, not only to look towards what we're doing today, but to look towards our initiatives for the future. Thank you.
Dr. Brown, people are looking very closely at the relationship between the city and the school district. How do you envision partnering with the Office of Youth Development?
Well, one of the things I think we have to factor very strongly is that oftentimes we think about what youth want or what would help youth like adults. And so in this work together, we need to ask youth, we need to get their interest and their expressed concerns. We need to really engage them in the building of what we're creating and not create a space that's for youth made by adults. So one of the things that we are working really hard on in the school district, and I would say in partnership with the city, is to really listen to young voices, to ask questions before we're 3 steps in, and to factor their voice in the planning. And what we continually find and really are both proud of and amazed by is that when we ask young people questions, they will tell us information that is real and that is accurate and that we need to be paying attention to.
Joy, do you want to answer the question?
Yeah, sure. I think to kind of build on what Dr. Brown said, I think what struck me is Noah began with a question on, the village greening of how are the children. And I think to a certain extent, the Parks and Rec Department and the city in general has done that, but I think we need to do it a lot better and to continually do it. As far as our department and what we offer, we're in a key position to advance youth development in general through our spaces, our programs, the folks we hire. We have a number of youth that are actually turned to the Parks and Rec Department as its employer. So we are very much in support of this entire process. And I think the establishment of an Office of Youth Development is going to be key to that advancement. I think one of the great things about the city of Long Beach is we have so many different youth-serving agencies that are ready to serve, but we're so large, and we do the best we can, and we're still in a state where we're having to ask each other, what are we doing? How do we strategize together? And I think this office is going to play a crucial role as to how to be a resource for all of us so that we can turn to this office to see what the recommendations there are out there to train our staff, to design our programs so that youth voices are central to how we open up our spaces and advance youth development.
Thank you. As we talk about youth development, folks often first think about youth engagement in the workforce. Eric, can you speak on your department's work in currently engaging and working with youth? Also, you could speak on the way you collaborate with the Office of Youth Development.
Yeah, I think just to build on what my friends here said, I think it's a really exciting time to be a young person in the city of Long Beach. I think it's for the first time there's been just this formal body that will be, really obsessed with what it takes to help young people thrive. And I know that my colleagues have been advocating for this from the inside for a long time, but I think it really is a credit to Noah and others that have really worked to make this sort of priority number one. And so Pacific Gateway is excited to be able to partner with agencies within the city and then externally as well to really look at the intersectionality of the different issues that will support young people as they begin to plot out their careers. I think if you think about it, the things that enable a young person to thrive, maybe a good education, a healthy environment, the personal supports that they need to feel confident in themselves, those are the same exact things that it takes someone to thrive in their profession and have a long and meaningful career. And so this new focus on this opportunity is really exciting for Pacific Gateway. And we've already begun to have really interesting conversations with our colleagues about new opportunities beyond traditional workforce development to help young people in Long Beach do really well.
What are some of those things that you're doing?
I think one of the things that's a little outside of the typical kind of comfort zone of a workforce board is not just thinking about how to help a young person fit into the work environment, but how to educate Long Beach work environments to be malleable for young people of today. I think our vision is that a young person should be able to be their full, authentic selves. And sometimes that's an easy thing, and sometimes for young people, it's not. And so we've really begun to think with our employer partners, what does it mean to be a fully supportive Long Beach employer? What does it mean to really invest in a young person's professional development? And I think it's looking at that from a different perspective. And so we've begun to have conversations within our board and with our youth committee and with youth that we've brought on as collaborators and designers to help us rethink that relationship that young people have with work and the relationship that businesses have with the young people that they employ.
Is any of this work being done in partnership with the school district? And if it is, how does that look like?
Yeah, I think, COVID has actually introduced new opportunities. So we had just a series of conversations over the last couple of weeks about how to support young people that are having a hard time with online classes. And so one of the things that we'll be doing beginning in October is opening up our centers during the day and in the evening hours for physically distanced kind of study halls. And the district has had an early conversation with us about it and is looking at ways to bring resources to the centers so that they can get tutoring and scaffolding and other support. We want to create that, again, physically distanced kind of drop-in study center so that they can tap into our Wi-Fi and access all of those resources. We've also been thinking of new ways to connect young people with employers because they aren't able to do that now, and what that means to earn and learn in this new environment. So I think the school district's been a really great, not just partner, but responder in this environment, and I'm really excited about that too.
Fantastic. I'll pose the same question to you, Dr. Brown. How are you currently engaging and working with youth to advance youth success in Long Beach?
Well, like Eric said, this very challenging time has given us new opportunities to really engage, to really ask questions, listen, and have conversations that we wouldn't have had prior. And one of the things that we hold really importantly is the fact that many of our young people have experienced a real loss in the things that they like to do, right? The real limitation, everything from going to school, which some might have felt like they didn't like to do in March. We've heard that change over time as the opportunity has not been there to go to school. We're trying to outreach students through asking for their input on what would be helpful. We're trying to create social situations that can be supportive and safe for them. We're trying to encourage our schools to engage clubs and experiences that students would have at school that can be done virtually. We continue to have sports conditioning taking place. So what we're trying to do is really listen to the voices and then plan for all of the things that we can do now, looking forward to the days when we can do more physical, in-person opportunities for young people. And to Eric's point also, it's allowed a community conversation that isn't just about what are we doing for young people, but about how are we preparing the city to be more supportive of young people. In relation to business partnerships, one of the conversations that we've been engaging in, because there's a tendency with business partners to have them say, give us your best and brightest in terms of internship opportunities. And we don't only want to give our best and brightest. We want to create opportunities for every student who might want to have a work experience, who might want to be connected to an opportunity, but hasn't met with success yet. So we're trying to engage in those conversations amongst entities so that we're maximizing the opportunities that we do have right now.
I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Blair.
So the city of Long Beach has had many established and long-term opportunities, from our Explorer program to our cadet program to Search and Rescue, which is a partnership with Long Beach Fire Department. But we also have many initiatives that we do during the year. some of which are working with our local YMCA and Boys and Girls Clubs. We also have career days through the school district. And then we also have our Shop with a Cop, Toy Patrol, toy delivery. Kids with Cops is something that we work with the Kiwanis program that's here locally in the city, as well as a variety as we talk about the importance of physical fitness, basketball games and different sports with our faith-based arteries within the city as well. Working with Parks and Recs has been important over the years in connecting with our youth in that sports area. One of the things that I've done personally for the last 27 years is that I'm a youth basketball coach, and many of the kids that I coach and have trained over the years live here in the city of Long Beach. So one of the things that we talk about beyond sport is life lessons, and how can we better prepare our youth for work opportunities and for their future. So there are 7 things that I kind of look at, and 1 is communication, 2 is respect, teamwork, where we could have that collaboration and sharing of ideas, public speaking, forcing children to be in different uncomfortable positions publicly, which is good. And we also talk about the importance of education. A lot of times we talk about having a plan to fall back on. So one of the things that I talk to my kids about is having a plan to fall forward with, because I don't believe in the idea of falling back. So we are continually moving forward and trying to strive for something great. And then having a career within sport. I mean, the reality is that many of our children will not be playing sport professionally, but what can you do within sport to still have a career? Whether it's in retail, whether it's in coaching, whether it's in training and working towards an exercise science degree or kinesiology or something along those lines, becoming an agent. And many of our kids in this COVID area are really, really good with computers, a lot better than me. So working in an analytics type of field with sport is something that we all kind of consider for our kids. And with those life lessons, we talk about how to deal with adversity, extremely important in today's environment, effective communication, as well as accountability. And for me, here's the result. At the end of this, we'll have positive, productive members of our community who are servant leaders. And we're trying to break specific cycles within our community. And I think that's important through coaching.
And in the spirit of looking towards the future, how does youth engagement look in the future?
I'm sorry?
How does the future of youth engagement look at the police department?
Well, there are a variety of things that I would like to see us do. Youth engagement to me means also meeting kids in their space. I work with our Ministers Alliance here in the city, and one of the things that we talk about is engaging our youth in youth discussions and dialogue within the youth programs within our various churches. We also talk about virtual mentoring experiences and how post-COVID we can have some sort of mentor program with our children in a virtual type of experience. We're also looking at and exploring the possibility of having a youth advisory council for our police department, so that way we can hear their voice also in their environment and also inviting them into our environment. As you know, we've always had Chief for a Day with many of our kids through the school district, so we also want to expand that the best we can. So we're exploring working with and meeting with our deputy chief, our assistant chief, and our commanders within the police department, so they can see how our operations work, so that way we can gain some interest with our youth there as well.
Thank you. So there's our nation's currently dealing with 2 health crises, and there's a lot of attention looking at, a lot of people are looking at the health department. What is the health department doing to engage and work with youth to advance youth success, especially during this time?
Repeat that. What are we doing?
What is the health department doing to engage and work with youth to advance youth success?
I think so. I mean, throughout all of this process, I think we have been working with the youth ambassadors to date, but we've also included youth, depending on whatever plans and things that we work with going forward. And our focus is always on an overall wellness piece. So we know that to be, everyone always, you hear about the health department, and what you hear is, here's what you need to do. You need to take on these behaviors, and you need to eat healthy, and you need to exercise. And there's so much more to what that looks like. And then in COVID, in addition, you put on your face covering, you stay far away from people, and there are all these, And it's all these behaviors that we're asking people to engage in that and somehow is going to get you to a better space. But there's so much more to it, right? So we know that where you live and your experiences in your life and what are going on have so much impact on your health and wellness going forward. And our stand at the health department has always been that everyone in our city has this opportunity and to really be well, and wellness is, it's not like just not being sick, but wellness is this full feeling of like that you can get out and accomplish things and that you have strong relationships and things. So as we're thinking about our youth throughout this process, that was the focus that we started to bring in these conversations. When you look at what the goals are, you're looking at mental health and wellness, and you're looking at a space of hope and a hope for future. And you're looking at how is it that we're building relationship across all of our communities to be able to allow with that. So when you're sitting in this like, so you like, here's public health, go be healthy. But who we are, like everything that we are together is what creates that space of wellness. So we'll continue to engage. And we also have an early child plan, and we interviewed nursery schoolers. Like we had young kids, and we wanted to know what their experience was, and so that everything we are doing is the ability to plan and to move forward as we get through the COVID times as well. And then I think just during this COVID time is just an ongoing outreach, and we've had to change almost all of our programs, right? So much of what we do is in community, same with parks, right? And with schools is in community with people engaging in things. And so now the engagement is so much more about how do we, what is that, just that feeling of connection and that reaching out and making sure that people don't feel alone through this process as we continue to drive this opportunity for wellness and success.
I'll give Joy an opportunity to answer that question as well. How is Parks, Rec, and Marine engaging and working with youth to advance youth success?
Well, you know, that's our business, engaging and working with youth. We learned early on, unless you get the buy-in of the youth, they're not going to come. So that's something to a degree that we've done for a while. But we also recognize that it's uneven, let's say. So we know that there are certain spaces and programs that are a lot more accessible to certain kids. And so we've been working, and especially during this time, on building that capacity. How do we ensure that our spaces that our communities are aware that these spaces are here for them to access our programs? And so we've made a push to try to be a little bit more nimble and kind of reimagining how we bring our programs to our communities. So we've been working on a number of things. Over the summer, we did open up spaces throughout the city of Long Beach to ensure that families did have that space for kids to be physically active, especially right now when isolation and being in front of a screen, that's the thing that you have to do to connect either through school or with your peers. Kids still need that space to connect with others and be physically active. And so we've done that with our spaces and modifying our programs to ensure families that they're safe to begin with. And then we reimagined how we are reaching our communities. So one of the things that we're working on is to take our programs directly to where the neighborhoods are, meet them where they are, right? Go to their spaces. And so we're rolling out mobile recreation programs to kind of go and target those specific communities that don't typically have access to our park spaces, so that we can offer a safe space for them to connect with each other, to be physically active, and to engage with our staff. Our staff are phenomenal. They're creative in the way they design their activities, and their core thing is listening to the kids, to the teens, what they want, so that they're continuously coming and engaging with each other and with us.
This leads perfectly to our next question. While this is a city-led plan, youth have shared the need to coordinate with the school district and other partners. Among the issues youth have discussed was a need for additional active and inclusive spaces. How will the departments and school district collaborate to create and activate inclusive open spaces? As we look at inclusivity, we're looking at it through the lens of ethnic background, sex, gender identity as well, socioeconomic status. So with that in mind, once again, how will the departments and school district collaborate to create and activate inclusive open spaces? We'll start off with Joy.
We're lucky in that we've had a history of talking with the district on a number of things. We've collaborated on a number of projects. We have after-school programs that we not only partner with the district, but with a number of youth-serving agencies. I think, though, we need to refocus it. We're in ongoing conversations right now to kind of look at all the different spaces that we have available across the city and to see how we are going to offer those spaces for all our youth in partnership with the district. Eric, I know that they're doing it with Pacific Gateway, but what the Parks and Rec Department is also looking at our spaces to open it up for youth to come and do the school day at our sites and then transition into an in-person after-school program for both our elementary and middle school. So it's these types of efforts and initiatives that we're continuing to work with the district to kind of partner and strategize to make sure that our programs, our spaces are in alignment with the school day. And we do that throughout the year. I mean, we offer the summer food program together. So I think if anything, this process has really kind of elevated the need to do that and maybe expand. We actually used to have programs where we would send our staff to school campuses and playgrounds where they would open on the weekend, and we'd open up that space so that the families who aren't necessarily next to a park can go to the closest playground, and we would staff it so that kids could have access to be physically active at those spaces. And you think maybe that this is an opportunity for us to either return to that model or maybe even expand on that.
And are these open spaces being activated throughout the city? Are they? Do we have sites in West Long Beach as well as the east side?
Yes.
North side?
That's one thing that we're trying to be better at. We're a large city, so we have a large organization. The district is large, so being nimble isn't our strength necessarily, but we're working on it so that as different communities show a need for a particular space or a program, we're trying to be nimble enough and not to just look at our spaces, but perhaps there is a campus there that we can look at where we bring our staff on so that kids can access those spaces. But we do our best currently to make sure that all throughout the city that either through a park space or a mobile program or even virtually, that we're providing something for that particular community so that the youth can access.
Great. Dr. Brown, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking as you're talking that we're fortunate that we've had a long-term relationship and that we're not trying to form a relationship during this challenging time. For a long time, we've said between the school district and Parks and Rec that we feel like we have joint custody of all the children because we share so much time, right? Us during the school day and you after school into the evening on weekends. And so we really look forward to opportunities to continue that work together when we can physically be back together, and we're definitely missing that space. The space that we try to maximize right now is really through voice, because in the absence of being able to physically get together and go to places, what we have is listening to one another. And so our efforts in terms of youth engagement really rely on being able to talk and listen and interact in a way that feels supportive going forward.
Thank you so much. One of the emerging themes of the plan is community care, which is defined as the development of caring communities by strengthening the dynamics between residents, places, and community institutions. How would the police department work with the Office of Youth Development to enhance community policing relationships? What kind of programs would you like to see? This is questions. We'll start off with Lieutenant Byron Blair.
Sure. I think one of the key words that we talk about and that we've talked about up to this point is relationships. And, you know, as we talk about programs that I would like to see, I think we touched on it just a little bit as far as a youth engagement and dialogue program, whether it's through Park and Recs or through the school district and our local businesses in our city. The virtual mentoring program is a unique dynamic because we're so used to being in person, and to be able to find an opportunity to do things and infuse it with technology. And again, meeting children in their space, and sometimes we have to now look at maybe shrinking our sizes as far as the groups that we work with, and then try to maybe increase our frequency in which we do things. One of the things that I've learned also in 2020 and working with Kelly and our department leaders is the fact that we have a great group of people who are outstanding mentors, both from the sworn side as well as our professional staff. And I think it's important that we tap into all of our resources within the city, because this is a shared experience for all of us, and it touches the fabric of the entire city. And again, going back to the youth advisory group, I think in talking to our youth, I mean, my wife and I are raising two teenage boys, and being able to have different types of conversations with them, hearing them and their friends and their voices, and hearing what they need and what their dreams are important, and to do what we can to enhance that and enhance their relationships in this space now.
Great. Kelly, can you speak to that as well, especially around the development of caring communities by strengthening dynamics between residents, places, and community institutions?
Yes, there's so many different ways that we connect as community, and so you need to get closer. There's so many ways in which we can connect with community, and we've been working as the health department in the Washington Middle School neighborhood is one of those examples, where community members come together and start to identify key things that we can be working on together that they feel strengthen the opportunities within those communities. And so to be at the table and say, okay, what is it within that community that you believe is, that is going to support this space? And then how is it that we can support, but not do necessarily, but that we're really engaged with moving forward? And one of the key things that came through is sort of the safe ways to school, right? So there's a program where it's really the community is out and they're paying attention during specific times when youth are out, that they're really making sure that our youth are safe. And so it's a starting place where you're creating the safety in the neighborhood, as well as then the youth feel like that it's safer to get to school. And now this is not during COVID time, but during regular time. But I think also really engaging our partners. So our school district has been very involved, and the principal of the school and the teachers and the businesses in those communities get very involved with specific programs. As well, and with the police department being like they're involved, they're there, they're helping with the eyes on and safety, but not from the space so much of enforcement, but of really understanding what is going on and who's out there and how can we engage and how can we help support through other ways. So I think there are so many ways that we can to build those relationships, but it means that we all have to be sitting together, and that nobody sits like the city or the community or the youth necessarily, but as partners and on equal footing about how we design and develop going forward.
And on the subject of community care and the presence of law enforcement, I know there's been some attention centered around the school district, and I know campuses are closed down right now because of COVID, but can you speak on that, Dr. Brown?
Speak specifically on
the presence of either campus security and some of the work that the school district has done to address that.
Yeah, we continue to have a conversation about safety on campus always, and safety to us doesn't just mean physical safety, it means emotional safety as well. And so we are engaging in a number of ways around building safer school communities, and doing that through engaging in practices like restorative justice, like the ways that I've described, lifting up youth voices, sensitivity training for staff, and really highlighting the idea that school policing doesn't just happen through police, that we want the treatment of youth to be safe, supportive, and honoring from all adults, certainly on campus and within the community. And so it's our expectation, separate of law enforcement on or off our campus, it's our expectation that policing on our campuses does not occur, and that we are working from a supportive lens always in terms of how we're taking care of our youth.
Pacific Gateway has a legacy of reentry programs and working with opportunity youth, as employment is often seen as a diversion or prevention strategy. Can you speak to some of that work that you're doing at Pacific Gateway, Eric?
Yeah, I think I think I'm reminded about one of the main tenets of what Pacific Gateway does by the quote from President Obama about helping youth think more broadly about their futures. So you're right, the Pacific Gateway has done reentry work, and we've also done really aspirational work through a couple grants that have helped young people explore careers in law enforcement as first responders, as firefighters, as police women. And we did that in partnership with the police department and the fire department, and that was incredibly rewarding. It gave young people access into a world that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to connect to, and they saw police officers and firefighters in a different way and really got to don the uniform and experience that. But we also understand that we do not want to track youth into particular careers. And one of the phenomenon that all of us that work in youth workforce development is that oftentimes when a young person has had contact with the system, whether that's through probation or a social worker or child protective services, when you talk about what do you want to do as a profession, sometimes they naturally migrate to those things because that's what they think a professional is. It's a teacher or someone else in the public sector. And we think it's really important to meet those young people in those intercept moments and say, why not a banker? Why not a scientist? You know, what message have you not heard? What message are you not hearing from the people around you that makes you think that some of those opportunities are cut off from you? So I think the reentry work that we do is meaningful and important, and we are certainly just one of many organizations in the city that is doing that work. But we always enter those conversations thinking about the diversity of options for every young person, whatever they may have in their background or whatever their concept is of the future. It's our job to make that broader and bigger.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Joy. As we look at community care, we also look at it through a social connectedness lens. As we meet with young people, especially amid COVID, they speak to the difficulty of social isolation, not having a connection with peers, the stressors of having to do their work in crowded homes or spaces. Also, they're looking to community partners, including the city, to develop virtual spaces such as drop-in centers, maybe even esports. Is the city doing any work around that, or any work around creating those virtual inclusive spaces where they could engage and be social online?
Yes, one of the things that we piloted over summer was a virtual experience, and we focused on the camp for the younger age youth. Typically in summer, that's who we cater to for the most part. But we are venturing out now and transitioning it into an out-of-school experience, and we're offering an elementary school module and also a middle school module. But our teen centers are also working on offering a virtual space for teens, and I think it's crucial for us to actually make it youth-led. So we're reaching out and working with a number of youth as far as, you know, how do we reach out and make sure we're creating a virtual space in which our youth are coming to just connect. But we're, like I said, we're starting with our after-school program so that we're offering the same, we're trying to modify activities so that the activities that we would typically offer in person, we're reimagining and doing it in a virtual space. So we have recreation leaders. They're so creative. They've already led a number of dances, performances. They lead workouts, and then they use Google Meets just like the district does to have that connection, even though it's through the screen, so that they can see their rec leaders and lead them through a number of different activities. We're also offering academic enrichment supports, and we're trying to touch base with the district to make sure that any strategies that we can incorporate into our virtual programming, that we're doing that to make sure that any academics is reinforced. So virtual definitely is something I think that's actually started with COVID, but I see that this is going to be a delivery model that's going to be with us for a long, long time.
Great, thank you so much. Many youth are uncertain about future plans given COVID-19 and life challenges. We know social networks play a critical role in social and economic mobility. What is your department or organization doing to help build the social capital of youth? Just some context. The conversations around displacement are very real in the city. The youth are looking at career pathways that will allow them to stay home. That's one of the conversations that came up in our focus groups and also our survey. I'm going to turn to Eric to touch on that. Once again, what is your department or organization doing to help build this social capital of youth?
Yeah, oftentimes when a young person, maybe 16, 18, 22, comes into our programs looking for a job, it's often the first time that they have had a boss or worked with an employer or worked in a work environment. And we know that there are many benefits to that, certainly the money that they make, but the connections that they build and the expansion of that professional network is really valuable. It really is sort of who you know as much as what you know. And so when COVID-19 really took most of the job opportunities off of the board, we assembled the bureaus in the city, and with leadership from Kelly and other folks, developed an internal youth program where we have placed young people within half a dozen departments, and over 80 young people have been earning a living wage all summer long. And beyond just making some really important money that is helping their parents and themselves pay the rent, it created this direct connection to bureau managers, to analysts, to IT people within the city, all of these different departments that they were working in, that has just created this meaningful experience on both sides. So we're looking to do more of those things. We're also a big partner, a lead partner in the Long Beach College Promise Career Fellows, which is really looking at career opportunities after a young person graduates from Cal State Long Beach or from Long Beach City College. And we're specifically looking at the development of mentorship programs with business owners and supervisors that are individuals of color, so that young people are able to make important connections with people who have similar life experiences. We're doing this, again, to build out that social capital. It's also something that's really central to what is one of the most important projects that Pacific Gateway has taken on the last few years, which is the opening of a new center in 2021, which will be called Future LB, and will be on Willow. And it's called Future LB because we are reorienting all of our programs sort of from the perspective that the young people that we work with really are the future workers and professionals of this city. And that reorientation is really built on this idea of social capital. So the biggest investment you'll see from us moving forward is actually in the space of mentorship. And we're looking at really novel ideas where we're not just maybe partnering with one or two organizations, but we are finding and recruiting mentors that are organically already big parts of their neighborhoods, and doing capacity building to teach them a little bit about maybe the more technical aspects of mentoring, but really amplify their care for the young people that they've had connections with, and move these individuals into career pathways and connect them to employers and people within their own networks. So I think that idea of social capital is really kind of the North Star, coupled with a real commitment to equity and inclusion for Pacific Gateway moving forward.
Thank you. That's the same question to Dr. Brown. What is the school district doing to help build the social capital of youth?
In this time, that's the area that we've received probably more feedback, or as much feedback as any other area of concern, because of the loss of social contact, which really greatly limits our abilities. We've worked hard to try to recreate virtually all of the social experiences that students would have, to include our after-school programs. We've been providing virtual counseling services for students, and we will continue to do that. We've actually expanded those efforts because the mental health concerns are of great challenge, and we know it. We also are extremely appreciative of our teachers, who, through the many skills that they've learned over the last month, as we've returned completely virtually to campus, they do things like opening up their classroom 15 minutes ahead of the day so that students can socially interact with one another, or doing the same thing at the end of the day, leaving the opportunity open during lunch. So just really trying to grab those spaces, which are almost exclusively virtual right now, so that we can foster the type of social contact that we know that our young people are missing.
We're living during sometimes where there's a lot of insecurity, a lot of concerns around our own mental health and the mental health of young people. What are we doing as community agencies to increase access to mental health services? So right now, young people express that there's a lot of red tape, especially around eligibility, and they don't know how to navigate the space of mental health in regards to who to call, who to reach out to. Does anyone want to go first in answering that question in regards to what they're doing to increase access to mental health?
I do.
Go ahead.
And I want to do it because, again, this speaks to those relationships that we have had already. So we've had an amazing partnership with the 6 community mental health agencies, the large agencies that are here in town, and the school district, where they serve a couple thousand students a year in our schools for therapy. They have all continued with virtual therapy. And the point of contact for a need would be through school. So if a young person is watching, or if a parent is watching and realizing that they need support, the school counselor at any of our schools at any level could be a point of contact to access a referral. And if there isn't a mental health professional at the school that can provide that support, then we can connect them to the appropriate agency. And I'll just say that I believe we can cut through all that red tape with a call directly to school.
Pose the same question to Kelly and the health department. What is the city and the health department specifically doing to increase access to mental health services?
Yeah, so the health department has just released sort of a new list of resources that are available, and in fact, one went out with all the utility billing is going out, which so that everybody in the city has an understanding of who to call and places that they can go. And we also have on our website the different access points. I think the other thing that's really important to know is that the city of Long Beach has a behavioral health urgent care center. It is open 24 hours a day whenever someone is in a crisis. And so it is a connection point to so many different things, just a direct connection. And I think it's important for people to know that, because I think people do call around and they find someone they've heard about and they call that person and they realize that person is full. But there's so many, we're hearing that there are so many different providers who do have availability, and they're doing it online, just as you were talking about. It's virtual, and so we want to make sure that people have that access, they know where to call. So you can check our health department website, but please know that there is always a place open 24 hours a day if anybody needs those supports.
Thank you.
I think too, Pacific Gateway is not a mental health organization, but I think every organization has to do its part. We also surveyed students, and they said this was one of their sort of #1 barriers. And so in this new center that I talked about, there will be a dedicated sort of therapy room where we will invite some of the organizations that Dr. Tiffany described to co-locate and use that space so that they can see their clients.
Great, thank you. I know that we don't have any representatives from either Long Beach Transit or from, I believe, Development Services, but does anyone on the panel want to speak to transportation or housing and how they're working to increase access to safe, affordable, and accessible transportation or housing options for young people, especially some of our most vulnerable population, including system-involved youth? So I know that in some places in other municipalities, there's examples of partnerships between local transit systems and school districts to provide access to transportation. Our own Long Beach City College, I believe, does that, and so does Long Beach State. Is there, has that ever been explored at the school district level and providing the same thing to K through 12?
Well, we have a couple of programs where we provide tap cards for students so that they can access varying programs that they participate in. That's been our primary contact. We've also, through our support for students that are either homeless or in transition, provided transportation access through a tap card, through bus passes. We don't have a more formal connection with city transit than that. But we look forward to all of those opportunities again. We look forward to people going somewhere again in the future.
Exactly.
And really exploring what that will look like.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk to a little bit about homelessness. I think that the city's multi-service center is always available to people who are experiencing homelessness to do whatever we can to start to link people to services. As of today, we have opened our new year-round shelter. It is a space for those who are over the age of 18. So if people are homeless, they need a one night of shelter or longer term, we work very closely. They can go to the multi-service center and we will we'll meet with them, connect, learn what their needs are, learn if they have any family or other connecting points or whatever that is, whatever we can do to help to support people so that people are not, that our youth are not living on our streets. And then our Everyone Home Long Beach plan focuses heavily on our TAY population, which is our transition age youth. And how do we start to build a stronger, just more access, more spaces, more supports, and others for our youth ages 17 to 21. So we're paying a lot of attention to it. We're not fully there yet, but we do have supports for youth who are experiencing homelessness, and we want to make sure they know that they can go and get help.
Great. Thank you. As we get towards the end of this panel, I want to ask a very personal question to all of you. What would you tell your younger self, given what you know now as an adult? Who wants to start off? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. And also during this time, as our panel thinks about how they would answer that question, I want to encourage our public to ask any questions on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Questions are open.
I would tell my younger self that you have really great hair and you're really thin.
Skinny.
Hold on to that. I think I would encourage my younger self to, again, just think about all of the possibilities. I think that we grow up with a lot of messages sort of in our heads about what is easy for us or what is difficult for us, and we're capable of so much more than we think we are. And it's something that I would have told myself then and try to tell myself now. And it's something that we tell our young people all the time.
Great. Thank you. You still have great hair, by the way. Let me see a little bit of it. Who wants to go next?
I would tell my younger self to exist, to use my voice, speak out. Let myself be heard. Don't wear a dress just because somebody says you have to. Do what you want to do. And the encouragement is that it's what we see our youth doing more of, right? We see that youth don't just expect to be seen and not heard, but they expect to have opinion and share it. So to exist with a strong voice.
I like that. Thank you. Let's go next.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, so often it's you think you need a plan. You think you know exactly where you're going, and your education early, and that predicts where you're going to, what the work is, and that you had to know everything up front. You don't have to know everything up front. The world shows up, and you have to be ready for that world. And if you just have the basic sense of yourself and the sense of what you care about and the passion and the things that you care about most, the world will show up, and it will give you those opportunities to pursue whatever that is, and to create the space that makes you happy and excited about what you're doing.
I think I would tell my younger self, like my colleague over here, that gray hair is okay. But seriously, I think one of the things that I still hear my mom tell me today, and tell my kids today, is that your voice matters. And we are in a time now where expression is key. Respectful expression is key. And that is a message that I talk to my kids about, all of my kids, even the kids that I coach, that your voice matters, and don't be silent. Speak up for yourself and challenge yourself every day.
Powerful. Thank you.
Mine's similar, and it's to trust your voice, even if it's shaky. to understand that it's a journey, to understand who you're going to be. I think I would tell that to my younger self. It's okay at that point that you don't know what's going on, and that you have supports out there, and to look beyond your 5-block radius, whatever it is for you, and to trust that, and it's a journey, and you'll get past anything it's in front of you right now. So.
Thank you so much. We're getting some questions from the public. One question that I see here is around Future LB. Folks want to know, what is Future LB? How could I access some more information? When does it open?
Yeah, it's great. So for more than a decade, Pacific Gateway's had the Youth Opportunity Center. So it is a reimagination of that. It will open in the spring of 2021, and it's built on 5 kind of main sort of themes. One is a place where a young person between the ages of 16 and 24 can plan the next 2 years of their life. So if I am a mom who's 19 and I want to plot out what year 20 and year 21 are going to be like, then this is the place that I will go to do that. So that's number 1. Number 2 is connection to direct employment. So in the past, we've been really focused on programs that are available because you qualify for this or qualify for that. We want to be more of what we call a labor exchange, a place where you might go and learn about, a part-time job at Target, or maybe something with an employer that's local and small that we've developed a real relationship to. It's also a place where we want to connect people to training opportunities and reconnect to education. We want it to be an objective place where you can go and say, I want to be a medical assistant, and I know that Long Beach City College does this, and I know I can pay for this program over here. What are the pros and cons? Or I'm thinking about a charter school or another sort of Jordan Plus or going to Poly. What are my options? So it's an objective, kind of neutral space to do that work. And lastly, it's a place to get some sort of all-around holistic support to make sure that you are thriving personally and have all the skills that you need in order to do well in your career. And the idea is that it is an accessible space, but very career-focused. We're also working with Parks and Rec through their teen centers to take Future LB programming out. But anyone will be able to access it beginning sometime in the spring of next year.
I would be remiss not to share that we're getting a lot of comments and feedback, especially around conversation of defunding the police. I'll just start out there. So I know as adults we perceive or we have that conversation much differently than young folks do. What do we want to share with young people that are calling for that?
Well,
I know it's a lot to feel free to take some time to process that question.
And I understand that. Like I said earlier, I know that we are in a different space right now with a different energy and with a totally different conversation. But what I will say is that let's make sure that we're strategic in what we do. We understand the impact that it's going to have, not just on law enforcement, but Parks and Rec, Education, Health Department, and all of our city partners, and what the impact is going to be on our future. So I think one of the things that I've done in 2020 and that we're still doing together in our city partners is listening, understanding what the needs of the community is currently and will be in the future, and putting together strategic plans on how we can act on that. So that's still something that's evolving, and it's still something that we're part of every day.
Thank you so much. And as you mentioned, it's important to think strategically. So this question is also for you, Lieutenant Blair. How would the police department consider the reappropriation of funding to support youth development?
Well, I know there's some harsh realities that we deal with from a budget perspective. I'm still in discussion about funds and budgets in this year and in future years. I would also like to see us, as we talked about, increasing what we do with our youth in Parks and Recs in school district, enhancing some of those programs that we've done, and probably re-energizing some programs that we've had in the past. So those things are still in discussion, and I think that's where we are today.
We appreciate that response. Thank you so much. We're going to give our public audience or online audience some more time to ask some questions. But if we don't receive any, I really want to take some time to thank everyone here. Our panel, once again, is Joy Warren from Parks, Recreation, and Marine, Lieutenant Byron Blair from the Long Beach Police Department, Caulippi from Health and Human Services, Dr. Tiffany Brown from Long Beach Unified School District, and Eric Sarato from Pacific Gateway. Also, really want to thank our Long Beach TV team and our other colleagues at the City Manager's Office. And a shout out to some of the folks that participated on our first MBK Town Halls, our youth panel, which really set the tone for this phenomenal conversation that we're having now. And of course, our system leaders and community partners that joined us for the second one. So with that said, I really want to thank all of you for being here. It doesn't seem I'm going to give our public a few more seconds to ask any more questions. But with that said, I really once again want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to be here. I want to tell the audience online to have a fantastic evening, enjoying the warm weather out there, and once again, continue the conversation and the dialogue online. Comments will remain open, and if need be, we will answer some of the questions that are posed on there, and we will follow up separately. So with that said, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Good night.
Thank you.